Should you pay grandparents for looking after their grandchildren? Do get your calls in now. As I've just mentioned, grandparents are expecting to fork out an average of £21.05 a day just entertaining their grandchildren over the summer holidays. That's gone up by over a fiver in a year. Should parents then be expected to cough up and remove the financial burden on grandparents? Maybe you'd refuse to babysit your grandchildren if you weren't at least getting some money. Maybe you just couldn't afford to do it. 0207 862 2222. That is the number. Let's plunge in and let's go straight to the grandma on the sofa. Not that you look like one. Eve Pollard, do you look after them? Will you be looking after them this summer?
Maybe, possibly not. Yes, there are certain weeks where the parents might zip off somewhere. Anyway, first of all, it's the greatest joy of anyone's life, I think.
Hear, hear.
To look after grandchildren. But I can see that if you haven't got much money, and as you get older, it seems to have vanished, you might say to your children, it's really quite expensive now. But I think your children, if they're wise, they know. I mean, we all look at our food bills every week and think, I can't believe this. And I think it's kind and nice to offer. And if you can, I understand it. I also think there's a couple of weeks before a lot of children break up. I would go to your local council, I'd go to your local library, I would find out what is available for nothing.
The free activities, yes.
Free activities.
And they can be fabulous sometimes.
Well, that would be fabulous to help everybody out.
Yes, good idea. Anthea, you're into this as well.
Well, I agree completely with what Eve has just said. And I think it does depend on the financial situation of the grandparent. I think it is an absolute joy to have grandchildren, as you absolutely adore yours and look after them so well and spend a lot of time with them. But of course, if your financial situation is that you haven't got as much time and as much money, then maybe if the parent is actually going to pay a childminder, they might as well pay the grandparent.
Yes, but I mean, in lots of cases, I think one of the reasons that grandparents are stepping into the breach is to save the working parent money, because it's so, childcare is obscenely, ridiculously expensive in this country, the most expensive in Europe. It's absurd. And there's a big difference between doing what I do, in fairness, which is, you know, some sleepovers, some afternoons, occasional lunches or whatever it is. I don't do full-time childcare all summer because I'm working is one of the reasons. But if you do, JJ, it's very, very exhausting and also very, very expensive.
Yeah, but there's a difference between paying your grandparent to look after the kid and actually just giving them £20 to say, okay, you're going to go to the zoo, here's the money for the food and drinks. I don't mind giving...
Good luck with getting into the zoo for 20 quid. Very good luck with that.
Terrible zoo. It's a terrible zoo. But yeah, give them some change. But when you two get old, you're not old yet, but when you get old and your kids are looking after you, are you going to pay your kids to look after you then?
No, I am old.
No, not old enough. Are you going to pay your kids to look after you?
Well, I think...
No, you won't be, will you?
No,
you expect payment from the kids now.
The thing is, we're going through a bad stage now. Everybody's going through a bad stage now. And I can see that some parents, who grandparents now, just worried about, will I be able to entertain them? Yes. I can't afford to buy, who knows how many grandchildren you may have, 4 ice creams, maybe 4 ice creams. Then I've got to feed them and I've got to keep them busy.
Absolutely.
And it's great when the weather's wonderful because you can go to the park and it costs you very little. But we are probably going to get rainy days, and rainy days are difficult. Yes, you can sit them in front of a TV film, but you want to entertain them and you want those days, I can't explain it, to be magical.
Yes,
I hope
you want to make that legacy of memories, definitely.
They will think, oh, grandma. I mean, I made, not my grandchild, but somebody laugh the other day when I said, did you sing on the coach when you went on the school? And he said, why would we? We've all got telephones. And he thought I was a weird old thing. And he's right, I am a weird old thing.
But I tell you who I feel sorry for in all of this, and that is the grandparents who are having to get up at dawn, you know, because it's a full day. It's the entire working day.
And if you have to travel there.
Exactly, plus the commute, you know. And so you may be there 9 hours, 10 hours, and you may really feel exhausted and daunted. And you may want to say to your adult children, look, really, this is a bit much for me now. It's really quite all-consuming. And I wouldn't mind a bit of a summer myself. But you don't, because you're the grandparent and you feel as if, well, you don't want to put them under the financial burden.
But wouldn't the adult parents they would sense this.
I think that's true.
Absolutely sense this. You be sensitive to your parents' needs. You know that they're getting older. You know that their stamina levels are not as great. Also, I do know on the flip side, and I know with my mum and dad, when my sister had her 2 boys and they were little, you know, it gave them a whole new lease of life. The excitement of the grandchildren. And because we lived far apart, and when they came to stay, there was the preparation. My mum was an ex-teacher, so of course there was sticking and gluing and painting.
That's where she got it from, you see.
Absolutely.
That's where Tracy Island came from, all that sticking and gluing and
all
everything.
of that.
Yeah.
So it does give grandparents who are retired, and I think we always have to remember that you can be a grandparent in your 40s quite easily.
Yeah.
So, and that's a different set of circumstances, but it gives grandparents a new lease of life.
Yeah, well, I would like to hear from you on this one. 0207 862 2222. That's the number. Will you be really in sole charge of childcare throughout the summer if both sides of parents are working? And is it something that you cherish? Is it something you love but you're worried about affording? Or is it something that actually is a bit too much and maybe it's a bit relentless and maybe, you know, you think, goodness, by the end of the day you are absolutely exhausted but you don't want to add to your child's burden by saying this is a bit too much for me. I think some grandparents are really kind of, in a very awkward position on this, but I think you think they should just simply pitch in regardless.
I don't understand where you grandparents are taking your grandchildren to, that you're saying, oh, it's going to bankrupt us. When I was looked after by my grandparents as a kid, we'd go into the house, in the grandparents' house, and we just have to sit there, basically. You find a book, play a game by yourself, throw a ball at the wall, run around the garden. That was it. It wasn't, okay, well, we're going to take him to the fair, we're going to buy him ice cream. No, none of that, sorry. Beans and toast for lunch, and then that's it, back in the garden.
I think if you're doing it on a daily basis, that is absolutely what happens. But if it's a treat or if it's a once a week, and then the other thing you worry about is, I'm terrified I'll get so tired by the end of the day, I won't see them fall off something or do something dangerous. I mean, it is also all about safety.
I took my older 2 away last year.
Yes.
I don't know why they allowed me to do this. I really don't. But we went to Spain, just me and the older 2. They were 8 and 10.
Yes.
I thought my eyes were going to fall out. I was staring at them so
In the swimming pool.
In the swimming pool, because I could just envisage having to ring Allegra, my older daughter, and say, you know, they fell down the stairs or something.
Yes.
You know, they fell. I just couldn't. So I was just like, I couldn't relax for 1 second. All night I had to check they were breathing. You know, I kept pumping them with ice cream so they weren't dehydrated when they wouldn't eat the food. The whole time I was thinking, am I fit to be in charge of these 2 precious children? And the answer was no.
With you.
When I was able to deliver them home, you know, thank God alive, you know, breathing and all these, I was the relief. I cannot tell you. I still haven't got over it.
You're more relaxed with your own children than you are.
Well, you are younger.
I mean, a huge responsibility.
Completely, absolutely, huge. Julie on Facebook says, I loved caring for my grandson while my daughter worked, and I wouldn't take a penny. He's 23 now, but I still miss those days and the hugs, and I would do it all again in a heartbeat, which is lovely. And Chris on Facebook says, my sister cares for her 4 grandchildren 3 days a week, including her youngest all day. The parents cannot manage without her. She doesn't get paid, but she is treated to holidays by them. She never accepts any money. So there's definitely a feeling that it's kind of, it's
a quid pro quo,
isn't it, to be paid by your own children. That is a bit. Let's talk to Amanda in Essex. Hi, Amanda, do you look after your grandchildren?
I did do many years ago for nothing. I couldn't bear the thought of taking any money off my daughter. She's struggling so hard to make ends meet.
Yes.
I said, no, I'll have them. She said, no, Mum, you can't have them. Not for nothing. I said, I will. I will have them for nothing. And I looked after them from when they were 3 years old, 2 years old, till they were teenagers, full time, every day, pick them up for school. I loved every minute. Now they're 37 and 35. I think, oh my God, I'd turn the clocks back if I could.
Oh, that's such a lovely thing to say. What are your fondest memories, Amanda, of the sorts of things you used to do with them that you think about it now and you think, oh, wow?
Everything. We had a pond in the garden. We've got a pond in the garden, natural pond, huge. They were so brilliant. Never went near it. I could trust them.
Wow.
They were as good as gold. Both of them good as gold. I got no complaints at all.
And so you weren't thinking, oh, my poor back, my aching knees, I'm exhausted.
No, certainly not. I miss those days terribly. I miss them very much. I still see them occasionally, but they're super, super boys, and I love them to death.
Tell me about the love that you feel for a grandchild. Because
Oh, my God.
people are always asking me, what's it like? Is it the same as your love for your children, or is it different? I'm going to ask Eve in a minute. But Amanda, what do you think?
Totally different. But love is... I love my child. I lost one of my children very shortly. Horrible, horrible, horrible. But I love my grandchildren equally.
Yeah.
Equally as my children. It's an amazing feeling. Amazing. I don't envy anybody that doesn't feel that. I really do. I love
Appreciate the call. I hope you play this back to them and they get to see you saying what a wonderful time you had and how much you love them. How would you describe the love that you feel for a grandchild?
I think I absolutely agree with Amanda. I also think you think this is a bonus in a funny way, because you chose, hopefully, to have your children, and I adore mine, but then to find that they have other extra family members, and I have come from a tiny family, so to have 5 grandchildren is just brilliant.
I felt that when I saw mine, I felt so much love, I was bound to be able to breastfeed them. I honestly did. I thought it's got to be exactly the same. You're just going to fill up with milk and that's going to be love. Actually, it didn't happen, but I thought it might. Thank you very much for all your calls on this one.